If you're using a fountain pen for drawing and sketching, you need a decent ink in it. And I thought it'd be really useful to have a look at the difference between fountain pen inks and some of the others, because it can be a bit of a minefield. Fountain pen inks are special. They are designed for fountain pens. Whereas something like this, which is drawing ink, it's Indian ink, you do not put that in your fountain pen at your peril. And the reason is that the particles of carbon that make this a beautiful waterproof black lovely ink will totally clog up your fountain pen. And if it's a cheap fountain pen, well, maybe you can live with that. But if it's an expensive one, you're going to be upset. You can get ordinary fountain pen ink, Quink ink from Parker. And you can also get coloured fountain pen inks. So Pelican and Waterman are two very well known brands, and they do amazing ranges of fountain pen ink. This is a beautiful turquoise, and I've got a lovely walnut sort of colour, but they are not waterproof. And if you're using inks for sketching, perhaps you need a waterproof ink. So then we get into waterproof inks, and waterproof fountain pen inks have to be fine enough not to clog the mechanism, but of course you don't want them to dry up in your pen either, because if they're waterproof and they dry up, you're never going to get it out. And the one that is a beautiful black waterproof ink is this carbon ink from Platinum. There's a third type of ink you might come across that you might want to try, and it's called either a document ink or registrar's ink. It is waterproof and fade proof, and this is basically the stuff they use to sign marriage certificates, birth certificates, death certificates. So it will last for 100 years. So I thought we should have a little try of that. Got this Kohinoor document ink, which is black, whereas this Diamine one, I think it's blue black. Yeah, blue black. But look, it says, the official ink used to record births, deaths and marriages, suitable for fountain pens. I have 3 piston fountain pens here. One has ordinary Quink ink in it. One has the carbon ink in it. And now let's just fill this up with document ink, and then we'll compare and see what they look like. They are piston fountain pens, so they don't have separate cartridges. The whole of that can fill with ink. You just twist the end. Don't know if you saw, that's a protective cap, because once it's full you don't actually want to twist the end. So we push all the air out, open up our ink, place the nib in the ink, and then just twist clockwise, and it sucks it all up, and you can see that that barrel is now full. Just going to wipe the end off so I don't smudge everywhere. So that's really easy. Now just put that end on so you don't inadvertently twist and splurge a whole load of ink out, and our pen is ready to go. I will also put the lid back on there. Got a little sketchbook here. It's my little moleskin sketchbook, which I use for line and wash sketches when I'm out and about and so forth. So I quite often will do the ink first, then put watercolour over the top. So it's really important for me to get a really good dark line that isn't going to run when I put water on it. Now I can't remember which pen is which. What I thought I'd do is a little drawing of 3 pens, and then we'll put some watercolour over the top to see what happens. Work out which pen is which. Just do very quick little drawing. Really see a lot going on in the pen because it's full of ink. Let's be sensible and get a pen that is empty so it's a bit more interesting to draw. So these little dollar 717 eyes is the name of this pen, and they frankly are as cheap as chips. I got 10 of them for 7.99. That's 80p a pen. I mean, that's just ridiculously cheap. So, don't have any great expectations of them, but in fact, they're really nice to draw with. Oh, gosh, that's me being a mucky pup there. They're really smooth and just generally quite fun. They hold lots of ink, and I've really enjoyed them since I've started using them. I think that was the document ink. Compare the others, and I hope it will become obvious which is which. I think looking at this ink, it is the carbon platinum. I'm just going to do the same. So this sort of transparent pen is called a demonstrator. For what it's worth, I like them because I like to see how much ink I've got left over, and I say I love these pistons because they hold so much. So let's put that second, and then we'll come to the final pen. It's interesting, the moment you start drawing with it, I hope you can see how much lighter the ink is. This is definitely the Quink. It's a sort of pale grey more than not a pale grey, dark grey more than a black, even though it is allegedly a black ink. Now that might not be an issue because if you're doing a piece of work, perhaps you don't actually want the line to be too harsh. So a grey ink might be a better way than having a stark black. Personally, I do actually like having, really good black lines, but there will be times when that's not appropriate. You can't really see an awful lot of difference between those two inks in terms of the blackness. Definitely can on this one in terms of that, and that is definitely the Quink. Now we need to test what these are like when we put water over the top of them. So this is the Quink ink, and it immediately runs when you put water over. You can still see some lines. Wouldn't be an issue. You could always do your watercolour first and then put your ink over the top. Or you might like this sort of smudgy, faded line look, but it's just important to be able to predict what things are going to do. So if we go into the registrar's ink, I was really surprised about this because I expected it to be waterproof pretty immediately. So I don't think I'd left it long enough, and I went and checked afterwards, and indeed that was the problem. So love the green tones that are coming out, and you could do a brilliant sketch with just water and that pen. Look at this carbon ink though, doesn't move at all. It's waterproof immediately, so if I was out and about sketching, that would definitely be my choice. So there are my 3 pen sketches dried, and pretty much all the lines of the Quink have gone. But of course I can always come back in on dry paper and just put them back in, so it's not an issue. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't use this for drawing. It's just understanding what it's going to do and what sort of effects you might get. So you can see that you can easily put ink back over the top, or indeed you'd have put the watercolour down first and then put the ink. Now, since doing this while it was drying, I thought, oh, I'm really surprised at what it's done. I need to go back and just to double check. I thought I'd done my research and I didn't expect it to move. And indeed, I went back, and what I've read is it's one of the most durable inks that's out there. What it does, it isn't actually iron gall, it's a top secret recipe that's similar to iron gall, and it becomes darker with time. From a few minutes to a few months, it goes flatter and flatter black, but with this greenish tinge that we found here. And as it is flatter and darker, it becomes more and more resistant. So I think I just washed it too quickly, and then say I'd left it for an hour or so, then I don't think we'd have seen half of that movement of the ink. But we did see with the platinum carbon ink, let me just put platinum, that was dry within seconds and it was waterproof within seconds. So if you are out sketching with a fountain pen and need a black ink, I would not be risking this. I would absolutely go for that platinum carbon ink. But say you only wanted to take your fountain pen with you, you didn't want to take watercolours, you could take that and maybe a water brush, and then you could develop some beautiful tones by diluting the ink and washing over your lines to form shadows, and that could be stunning. So there are 3 beautiful inks for you to choose from, and by understanding your materials, you're going to be so much more likely to get the final effect that you want.